Hello, everybody. We are back here, and today we are going to have the pleasure to host Zolian. Zolian, hi.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Very good to see you. Actually, Zolian is just a few miles away from me. We are just, he's in Greenville. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, but you know, we are in COVID-19
Hmm.
times, so we can't get together for this, unfortunately, but it's equally nice to have you over. I had the pleasure of knowing Zolian for 4 years, 5 years almost, right? Zolian graduated in 2016 with a undergrad degree in cellular biology and with a minor in chemistry. I had the pleasure of meeting him during his junior year, I believe, when
Hmm.
he actually joined my lab, my lab team, uh, as a lab assistant for plant physiology. And it was just a discovery day by day.
Yes.
A pleasant discovery, okay,
Hmm.
put it this way. So he graduated in 2016, and in 2017, I'm reading here, I don't want to miss any important piece of information. He started a master degree, a master of science at Clemson University in plant and environmental sciences. He worked under the supervision of Dr. Narayanan, and is just completed his work, his research, and is planning to graduate just in a couple of months, right?
Yes, that's right.
But the highlight is that Zolian, in the meanwhile, since he likes to do things ahead of time, he applied quite a few PhD programs, and he's been accepted in a very good number. And some of
Hmm.
those programs are top in the nations. And just a few days ago, he touched base with me to confirm that he accepted a position to go to work at Kansas State University under the supervision of Dr. Ruth Welty. And he's going to be getting a PhD in biochemistry and molecular physics applied to plants, because at the end of the day, Zolian is a plant specialist, right?
Right, right.
Um, Zolian has been having a very, very good time in grad school. He's been awarded in many different occasions for various things. And actually, just a few minutes before we got together, let me share something with you here. Just a few minutes before we got together, he told me that the paper is one of the co-authors, which is this one on the bottom, has been published. It's been published just today, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's actually like just this week. Yep.
Just this week. So what a timing. Comparative lipidomic analysis reveals heat stress responses of two soybean genotypes differing in temperature sensitivity. Now, if that doesn't mean much to you, just jump on the top here and you will see the topic of his dissertation, characterization of
Mhm.
physiological and lipidomic changes in peanut under heat stress, okay? If that doesn't help much, don't worry, stay tuned, because Zolian is gonna provide us a very good explanation of what he's doing and the relevance of what he's doing. Now, as I said before, I've known Zolian for quite a bit. Clemson University is just 40 to 50 minutes away from Greenville. So every
Hmm.
once in a while we get together, we touch base, we talk on the phone, we get coffee together whenever we have an opportunity. And it's been just an opportunity to get to see how it's been growing. And, um, and it's just been a great relationship with him. Now, those are all the highlights. All right. So you may think, oh, this is just a genius. Too easy
No,
for you
no.
to, to interview Zolian. However, it's going to emerge. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure. However, and this is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to have him so strongly, okay, in this series. It's going to emerge that the highlights that he's experiencing in life right now are the product of a process, a very long process. And I'm sure there is going to be even more and even brighter highlights from
Hmm.
now on. I told him, now I expect you to get a postdoctoral degree from the University of California, Davis, or Wageningen. So
Yes,
those
yes,
are the only two left.
yes.
But anyways, so this is just to provide you a little introduction about Zolian and his background. Let's start. Let's start. And so I'm going to start with a very straightforward question. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, you obviously study plants, okay?
Right.
Plants, mostly crops for
Mm-hmm.
agricultural purposes. And the relationship between humans and plants is very old, thousands of years.
Mm. Yes.
But at the same time, there we go, you are studying new technologies. Why? Why do we need to spend so much time in studying more something that we, as a human race, have learned to master over a span of thousands of years?
That is a wonderful question, and one that I have in the last year really thought about more, especially on a deeper spiritual level as a believer also, because I think the practical benefits are pretty clear, especially, well, specifically for those of us who are familiar with the sciences. We know that over 50% of many drugs come from plant sources. Uh, and so it's a valuable asset for human health. Obviously, we all have to eat, and plant nutrients are really important. And there's a lot of studies recently done on nutrition and what we eat, and how to put plant products into our diet that really alleviate a lot of the diseases that is so predominant nowadays, especially as it's 2/3 of Americans are obese. So just on human health wise, there's so many benefits, practical uses. And then you just look at one category of plant products, oil. You know, not 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 just the food, but you use oil for cosmetics, you use oil for engineering applications. There's just so many potential and existing uses for plant products. So from a practical standpoint, I think uh, studying plants is intertwined with human flourishing. But it's interesting because I think it was last summer I attended a conference on sustainable agriculture hosted by Clemson University, and one of the main organizer was a scientist from the United States Department of Agriculture, ARS. So ARS is Agriculture Research Services. They're the flagship research arm of the USDA, and he does a lot of work in sustainable agriculture. And surprisingly, during his talk, he read from a book that was written by this theology professor at Duke University, Ellen Davis. And I think the title of the book, I'll have to read it right here, is called Scripture, Culture, and Agriculture. And it's interesting, as any book you read, there's not everything you agree with it, but I found it profound how just from the excerpts I've read and what I heard from that speaker, how the land and imagery of the land is tightly embedded in the Bible. And when I looked up some verses, it was fascinating. You see in Genesis 2:15, it says, "Then the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and keep it. You make him," and in Psalm 8:6 says, "You make him to rule over the works of your hand. You have put all things under his feet." And I think, as the author of that book points, the land is not really ours. And everything that God created in written in Genesis, he calls it good. And I think there is, we find that how we're using the land, we're starting to realize that it is starving it of its resources. That the natural regenerative properties of the land are being stripped away. And I think as creative people, creatures that can innovate and understand, I think it's our privilege and a wonderful responsibility to learn this beautiful system that exists in nature to the benefit of the environment and humankind, really. So in that deeper level, recently I've started to really touch me. And I remember a quote from Teddy Roosevelt, president of the United States in the early 20th century. He talked about how a country, I paraphrase, a country that doesn't take care of soil doesn't take care of its future. So, I study plants. I study particularly in the cellular molecular level, but as you find when you study biology and the new technologies that emerge, all of these things are just layers upon layers, and they're really an interconnected system all the way down into the planetary surface. So for those reasons, I think it's here forever, you know?
Mhm. So let me ask you this: are you at Clemson the only ones studying this issue? This is a pretty global issue.
Oh, like at Clemson alone, as you could recall from Dr. A's wonderful introduction, there's a whole department, you know, plant and environmental sciences. And there are many people, many different faculty that study at different levels of this grand topic.
Right, right.
And Dr. A alluded to UC Davis, which is top in the nation, and the German, not the German, but the Dutch university. So it's really global. I mean, just to give you some tangible examples, you know, the Gates Foundation, they've invested uh, millions of dollars into improving agriculture as a whole, especially in developing countries. And so on those bigger, broader, abstract ideas, I think it's a very part of who we are. I mean, from
Mhm.
dust we came, to dust we'll go back. So I think it's a beautiful imagery, really. So
All right. Wait. Thank you very much for providing us this overarching perspective on the cutting edge. Okay, research at the cutting edge for sustainable agriculture. Um, Now, we want to go a little bit more personal. So,
hmm
can you tell us a little bit how did you get into this? So, was this
okay,
your dream? Is this what you were planning for? How did you discover to have a passion
right,
on this issue?
right. Well, I mean, a lot of it is owed to working with you and taking plant physiology. I think I'll have to like take a few steps back.
Go ahead.
Unless you,
No. Go backward. Don't worry. Go.
yeah. I think for me, I came into undergrad liking science. As a kid, my mom would have me read the monthly subscription of National Geographic, and so I really enjoyed that. But I never envisioned myself working with plants. You know, uh, the courses I really liked at the time were like essentials of cell biology, biochemistry, uh, and microbiology, just things that work under like a small mechanistic level. And I also had this huge desire to help society. But then it's when I took plant physiology that my view expanded tremendously. And when I got this offer at Clemson, it just grew and grew and grew. And a lot of it was due to my own ignorance. And I find this, you know, with a lot of fellow American students that, and just American society in general, we're very disconnected from agriculture. And I think that you have to unlearn a lot of things to learn new stuff. And I found that just interacting with this vast department, being a research university setting, it's I'm able to do all the genetic molecular stuff I love doing, but within a context of um, that really is valuable to humankind. And so it was just like, one thing built to it's another. And it's also humbling because, coming from someone who likes to plan things out to it down to the detail, um, you kind of realize that your plans aren't always the best. And man, am I glad I end up where I am. Like it allows me to be able to work outside in the beautiful nature, and also to do some wet lab stuff too. So it's really the best of both worlds. So
Mhm.
and now that I'm getting more involved on a global level, and I'll share with you guys some stuff that I'm interested in. Uh, you'll find that with research, there's stuff that you do in the lab, and there's a whole little level of taking that stuff in the lab and making it actually useful for society. So
Mhm.
I think that doing research in the plant field, agriculture field, it's you get a lot of benefits
Mm.
outside of just your specific research topic.
Right. Well, let me just say two things. One, a big thanks to your mom, because
Yes.
she used to read the National Geographic to you to put you to sleep.
No, she made me read it.
You read it. Okay.
Yes, and I loved it. It was my favorite, one of my favorite things to do.
All right. And then you said something that captured my attention, which I'm going to paraphrase as well. The power of ignorance. Hmm?
Mm,
And it's really in a nutshell. Unless you realize how ignorant you are, and unless you admit it in a certain area of life, you're never going to improve.
right,
Well, it's good to be ignorant as long as you take some actions to repair
right.
it, right? Let's keep going. Um, you give us an introduction about the field you work. You share with us uh, more about your passion, and you touched some technical things. Let me ask you a thing. How do you become a researcher in this area? So what are the skills, and what are the preferred academic path
Mm.
you need to.
Okay, so this is it's a tough question to answer because when you talk about the plant science research community, you can do so many different things or a combination of so many different things. For example, let me just give you an idea of, okay, if you want to improve or produce or make or develop a variety of, say, soybean that is highly resistant to pathogens, okay, you have the amount of research that's done into it is highly collaborative. You know, there has to be people that work at the phenotypic level to identify a certain lines, and then they have to make populations out of that using genetics
Right.
and mapping of quantitative trait loci, which are regions of the chromosome or the genome that are associated with the trait that you desire. And
Right.
then there are people, you know, where I work more closely in during my master, who try to understand the mechanisms, okay? What chemicals or compounds or what pathways allow this resistant variety to do well. And why is that important? Well, if you can understand the mechanism, then you can give that to breeders that can accelerate the breeding cycle. So as you can see from this short example, there's so many different areas, but what are some foundational skills? I think you need to have willingness to learn. I think three T's that really stand out to me is to be teachable, to be tenacious, and to be tough. And I think those are just qualities that you will have to develop. And if you come from a life experience where you know have to struggle on your own, I think that will really benefit you. And I say that because I don't want anyone to feel like they won't have the qualities to succeed in research. So those are more of the what I call the leadership skills that you would need to thrive as a researcher, to have personal responsibility, to be accountable. But on the technical side, in an undergrad setting, I think many of you who've already gone through your sophomore year as a cell biology major would probably have taken microbiology. At the time, it was Dr. Gray that was the lecturer, and I think Dr. Tuck, who was our lab professor, and the Vibrio. If you remember that Vibrio experiment, I think if you enjoy the opportunity to investigate things on your own, I think that's a really good marker. I also really enjoyed the 2 semesters of organic chemistry lab, where you really, especially second semester, you take the skills you learned from the first semester and able to synthesize your own compounds. I think those experiences really, for me, kind of confirmed that research is what I wanted to do. Just a lot of techniques you will be able to learn as you go. I don't want you to be technique driven. Be more hypothesis driven.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what are the questions that you're interested in, and these labs will help you touch some of that. But I think what really is important, and there's really no one right way to get to graduate school and become a researcher. But there is one thing I think that will really stand out is get research experience and get it now.
Right.
Okay, talk to a doctor, talk to other professors, even if it's things that you may not think you're interested in. You have to get that environment. Eventually, you have to go to other universities. I remember Christina Ross. I was so happy she went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is one of the top schools in biochemistry and plant science. And I think, like, for me, the intellectual training at BJ was top notch. I felt like I could compete with anyone at Clemson in my department. But I think for you to get a real idea, a good sense of whether or not research is good for you, you need to get research experience. So I think that is, I know it's not very specific, I know it's somewhat vague, but the techniques will come later on.
Right. So Zolian, you shared the importance of leadership attitudes and also the importance of acquiring skills and practical tools, okay, in your skill set, in your little toolbox.
Mm.
What about when challenges come? So what are some character attributes that you think are very, very, very useful? Because it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It doesn't matter where you end up. We're going to be facing some challenges. So can you share how some purely character
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
character
I
attributes
think,
you have, maybe also with some practical examples?
sure. I can give you several from my own experience.
Let's go with one.
I think the first thing that I had to unlearn was that this, I don't know, fantasy I had that doing the research is I'll work on this one problem and I'll be able to tease apart the entire pathway or system or problem, publish an amazing paper, and like solve this problem all in the master's degree. That is not how it works. Okay, you work on, like, you're one slice of a huge picture.
Right.
Okay, and a lot of times it's not glamorous. It's sometimes it can be mundane, repetitive stuff like pipetting a lot of microtubes, or working out in the field collecting field phenotype data. So in terms of character, you really need resilience. But before that, you really need to have purpose. I think that for me, my purpose was, I knew I wanted to do research, and I knew that a lot of times I couldn't really see the big picture of what I was doing at a specific moment in time was important. But when I reminded myself of the big picture, like the grant proposal that my advisor showed me, he gave me the drive to continue through the boring, mundane times. So it's really those two things I think are intertwined closely. You yourself need to be resilient, but your resilience can be bolstered if you have a strong purpose. And I think other characteristics people will value is be a team player. I mean, when I joined my lab, I had one guy who was just so selfish. You don't want to be that person. And people will value you. Like, I remember when I just first started, I felt, oh man, like don't have as much research experience as some of these kids who went and did their masters already, or worked in a big research lab during their undergrad years. And I was like, man, what am I gonna do? But if you apply yourself, you work hard, and people see you have good intent, and people will willing to trust you. Because that's what I've learned. When PIs look to hire graduate students, they get a grant and they're responsible to produce results from those grants. So they want to hire someone they can trust and be reliable. And when you get into that environment, you will find people approach you. It's like, hey, I like you. I see that you do good work, and you'll find opportunities expanding. So resilience and purpose is important.
All right.
I think also just to accept that some things will be out of your control. For my main research project, we had to build what these call heat tents to impose high temperature stress out in the field. So I spent, goodness, a whole semester working on building these heat tents. We spent close to $8,000 We were on a low budget, and we finally got it up. And then 1 month before we were supposed to impose the treatment, I got a phone call from my friend who was in a different lab but works in a close field. It's like, hey, remember that thunderstorm last night? It destroyed everything. My goodness, my heart sank. And at that time, I was very blessed to be around a group of believers because I attend this church at Clemson who were composed of a lot of other graduate students, business scholars, and people who really understood. And I really had a great sense of peace at that time. But had I gone and been doom and gloom, that would have been the end of the story. I wouldn't be here talking to you in this video. I wouldn't even, no way would I be in a Ph.D. program, you know? So in that sense, you know, if it happens, it happens. Let it go and try to work your best. And the other thing is, in that same vein, nothing's going to be perfect. So if you think you're messing up, talk to your advisor right away. Because I've realized that your advisor knows a lot more and has a lot more experience because they've made a lot more mistakes. And what you think is not unsolvable or unsavable, they will find a way to produce some kind of result. It's amazing. So, yeah, so, you know, be resilient, be purpose-driven, recognize that nothing will be perfect, and don't have a doom and gloom attitude. And specifically for believers, surround yourself with a good church group that will really encourage you.
So, how difficult would you say it is to enter in a cross-functional group that works with sustainable agriculture? Modern technologies apply to sustainable agriculture, like the ones you have been developing. And
Yeah.
I've been developing because I know you were also part of a small side project to optimize some wet lab chemistry-based technologies. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, I think I mentioned earlier, you know, with grad school, the beautiful thing is it's nothing like undergrad. You know, it's there are many different opportunities. I've seen other colleagues that started out with I started out with a project on phenotyping pollen characteristics in peanuts. You know, and that was important because, you know, functional pollen is essential to producing fertilization and therefore producing any kind of fruit. And you need fruit in order to make money. But then my project changed into lipidomics, which is looking into lipid traits that are associated, or changes in lipid traits that are associated with heat tolerance. So I feel like I'm not being directly answering the question, is because there's so many ways to go about it. But what I've really noticed is that people like to hire people they know. And so that's why, you know, going back to gaining experience, you know, you go to another lab elsewhere, they see that you're a good worker. When you apply, you have a huge advantage over many other people. So in order to get into a lab, you really need to get as much experience as possible. I remember with Clemson, Dr. A gave me a really good advice. He said, go to Clemson and talk to the professor because she's only like an hour away. And I remember a year into my program, she mentioned that me asking to see her, come to her class and talk to her really impressed her. And that was one of the moments that made her change her mind to seriously consider me as a potential graduate student. So it can be difficult if you're like unknown, but that doesn't mean that you can't get in, especially if you have good academic credentials. I know that a lot of the kids in the biochemistry major, they do stuff with Cayman, which is great, you know. But people, why is research experience important? Well, really because they're investing a lot of money in you, especially if you are on a research assistantship like I am. So, you know, that means they give you stipend. It's not a lot, but on average, you know, a master's student would cost anywhere from like $30,000 to $40,000 a year for the professor, because they have to pay you, they have to pay your tuition. If you're a PhD student, is easily $50,000 a year. So they're investing a lot of money. They're investing, especially if they're a young professor, they're investing their career in you. So it's really important for them to know that you'll be not only a good student, but the right fit for their lab. And all of those things are made a lot easier for you if they know you, if they've met you, if they've seen you work. I think that really helps.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, reach out to people in advance. You got to reach out all months in advance.
Mm-hmm. So you started your master's program. So what was one challenge? What was one difficulty that you didn't see coming that actually happened, and going through it actually helped you grow?
Yeah.
What can be one main issue, one main challenge that somebody who's interested in getting into this kind of career should expect to face at some point in a program like yours?
That's a great question. I think across the board, I can, as far as the life sciences, that you are responsible for the results. Yes, you have a major professor, but when you have to treat this as a job. Yes, you're a student, but if my heat tents, when they were destroyed that one summer day, had we not found an alternative way to build backups in time,
Mm-hmm.
then not only will I not be able to graduate, then my advisor will look bad on her for the funding agency. So
Right.
that kind of pressure is
It's heavy.
it's very heightened,
Right.
but it also makes you responsible and mature.
Right.
And if you have a good advisor, which is something I'll talk about later on, it can be very empowering, to have. And that's what I loved about the Vibrio lab, the organic chemistry lab, some of the stuff we did in the plant physiology lab, and just working for under Dr. A and doing the cancer research lab. To have that sense of, okay, this is a problem you enjoy, go. And I think that can be a very empowering, but it also comes with a huge amount of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we are headed toward the end now, but just a couple more questions. How did how did the education at BJ help you to get into the path? So what were the major things?
Right. So I think I can roughly break it down into two different ways. Academically, in terms of course material, and also in terms of responsibility. So what I mean by academic and course material, I've taken a number of courses here at Clemson already.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the courses I've taken they're called 8,000 level courses, so it's exclusively for graduate students. And then there's some called 6,000 level courses, which is graduate students and upper level classmen can take together. Only difference between the two is that graduate students do one or two other projects that is exclusively for them. And I was surprised to see at the quality of teaching was, compared to BJU, very low. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating too much, but I felt that the rigor of training at BJU was much higher. And I knew it right away when I took one of my tests. It was, the questions were not well thought out. I felt like I didn't really have to think through. I felt like it was just regurgitating textbook material and throwing back out. Like, what can you memorize most?
Right.
And then put it back out, which is really not helpful in a research setting. Because in a research setting, you're trying to generate new information. And so what you really don't need, especially in the information age we're in, you really don't need to memorize a lot of stuff. Of course, memorization is important to help your thinking be sharp. But what you really need to be able to think through problems. And I felt that the training at BJU was exceptional. I felt like I could think through problems really well. Not just in terms of doing well in my classes at Clemson, but really doing well as a researcher. I felt like I could think through things deeply. I felt like I could have really intelligent conversations with my advisor, many times of which she would, and a good advisor will listen. And
Yeah.
I keep on saying this because there's a reason. I'll explain some more later. But a good advisor will listen, and a good advisor will treat you as a peer, which she does to me, you know. So in terms of academic wise, if you the courses in the biology chemistry department will do really well. Now, one course I wish I did take, as especially someone who was a chemistry minor, was I wish I took some more like the analytical chemistry
Mhm.
and instrument analysis courses, because with my lipidomics work, I work with mass spectrometry, and I feel like uh, especially in the biological sciences, having a robust chemistry background will give you a good advantage, and especially if you have worked on these analytical machines, I think that will make you a very desirable applicant. So in terms of that's for academic stuff. In terms of responsibility, just being the opportunities I had to work at Cancer Research Lab, to work as a lab assistant, I think those really, uh, I used to hate it when Dr. A would not give me an answer, but that actually prepared me really well, because sometimes my advisor doesn't know the answer. It's not because we're not intelligent people or people who can think for themselves. It's just because the answer is not there yet. That's part of research. And so just to be used to people not telling you what to do and having to figure things out on your own, I think that's highly beneficial for a research environment. So in those two ways, I felt really well prepared, and I feel very how should I say, uh, it doesn't feel like there's imposter syndrome, which I really appreciate. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. This is really great explanation of what you're doing right now and how you prepared yourself for what you're doing right now. But
Mhm.
I feel like now it's time to understand a little bit more about what you will be doing soon as
Yeah.
you join this big lab, very important lab
Yeah.
at State University. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the lab and how you fell in love with the program? So what are
Yes.
the highlights that among the different offers you received made you say, I want to go there?
Yeah. Yeah. So you know, earlier I mentioned how you have to accept that you can't control everything. Nothing's gonna be perfect. Serendipity is ubiquitous in science,
Mm-hmm.
and what I mean by that is like um, how I came about with this opportunity was amazing, because I joined my advisor, who actually graduated from the agronomy program at K-State, which is one of the top agronomy programs in the country. And she had done a lipids related project, and her advisor, Var Prasad, who's a very well-known physiologist, they did a collaboration with my soon-to-be advisor, Ruth Welty. And so when I was doing lipidomics work for my master's thesis research, my advisor was able to set up an opportunity for me to go to Kansas State for 2 weeks. So this was back in 2018. And I had a great time. It was like they had the whole floor to themselves. They had all these amazing mass spectrometry machines. It's just you had postdocs, visiting scientists from Germany. I was like, wow, this feels great, and I just really had a wonderful time. And going back how working for a lab or having people know you, that 2 weeks made the difference for Root to contact me in January and ask me what I was going to do after my master's. And I think that's a concrete example of why I say it's so important to go out and get research experience. And so Ruth Ruth organized for me to have a trip to K-State in February, and I thought it was just going to be me and her, but she ended up introducing me to many other scientists, like geneticists in the agronomy department, some other biochemistry faculty, and they really had this really amazing idea they want to write a grant for, and they wanted me to be involved in. And so it was just what I enjoyed, because as I develop my scientific outlook, I see, and I've always saw this since my undergrad years, is that biological systems are so complex. I use lipid approaches, but that's just one slice of the picture. And so to have the opportunity to incorporate genetics and other tools to really see the bigger picture and kind of weave a storyline out of it. When they offered me that opportunity, I was so happy. And at the time, Dr. A knows that I was applying to 2 other programs, and one of them was UC Davis, and I had actually got an admission at Davis to go through the matching with a major professor. And we had some arguments because I wanted to go to K-State. but yeah, the Lord worked it out where this was the best opportunity. It was almost deja vu, in the sense that I didn't really think about K-State. I just applied to Davis and Cornell, and because I really enjoyed my time at Clemson. I was like, if I don't get a special opportunity, there's no reason for me to leave Clemson, because I already had some other offers here at Clemson. And then K-State out of nowhere came. And so that's what I mean by that serendipity. It's just God teaches you over and over again, and it just worked out really well. So I'm really excited. I feel like my time with my advisor was great, in the sense that she was a new professor. So smaller labs, smaller resources, but that taught me how to grind with limited resources. And now I'm going to in a different environment where there's much more resources, but I feel like I'm even more prepared, because I know how to value things, because I've had less before. And just really excited for this opportunity to work in such a multidisciplinary team.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me just say.
And I'm sorry, can I also add that I think this would be a good time to talk about advisors.
Yes.
It's the other way around too. When you there's a saying in my country where like food, you need to chew people for a few days to really get the real taste of what they're like. All right, PIs, advisors, when they interview you, when they talk to you, they're gonna give you their best selves. Okay, so being able to do like an internship, summer internship, or work in a lab will give you exposure to the department. You'll also be able to talk to the graduate students, who will be the ones who are going to tell you the actual truth about what's it like to work for person X or person Y.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only is it a good thing for you, because you get to advertise yourself to a potential professor you can work with, but it's also opportunity to figure out, okay, who is a good person to work with, who's not a good person to work with. And don't be blinded by big names. I didn't join Ruth. Yes, her reputation in lipid biochemistry was valuable to me, but I also knew that she was a great mentor. And so that's what you really want to look for. You want to look for someone who will invest in you. Because I've seen people in my department, it's sad, so who your advisor is the most important decision you'll make.
Right. Well, let me just say this. I'm very thankful you selected this program. It's a big group, and you're going to have the opportunity to specialize in biochemistry of plants as well. And I know you have a passion for genetics and genomics too. Hopefully some opportunities will come on that too.
Yeah.
Physiologist myself, obviously UC Davis is a big school.
Yeah.
I'm old, you are still young, you can get there at some point. So I have much hope in that for you.
Right.
It's very important, and you touched on this issue, on this topic in a few times. It's very important to connect interdisciplinarily, to be involved in cross-functional projects. And it's just amazing your process, the development, your professional development with you starting as a field, with some field experiments, with the phenotyping, and then there we go, moving more toward the biochemistry, the lipidomics, and now getting some deep biochemistry and analytical chemistry skills.
Hmm.
very big program. And actually, I just, as you were talking, I just selected the web page here. For those of you who are interested, this is the lab. Am I right? This is
Yes, that's right.
right. Zolian is going to be sharing, and Dr. Wealth is actually the director of the Lipidomics Research Center, which is a very well equipped and a very well established. There we go. There she is.
Oh, that's actually Mary.
Oh,
That's Mary. She's the lab manager.
all right. So you can see some of the machines that Zolian was so passionate about
Yes.
in this conversation. If I click here on people, obviously Zolian's face is not going to be there yet, but
No.
there we go. There we go. That Dr. Welty. Zolian is going to show up soon. Let me see. Let me just double check. Maybe they already sealed you. No, they haven't.
Not quite. Not quite yet.
Right. So it's a
Yeah.
big accomplishment. The last piece of advice. Obviously, I have no idea how many people are going to watch this interview, and some of them are going to surely find your experience, your story inspirational. Some of them may have never heard about cross-functional science applied to agriculture. Some of them may say, actually, you know what? That's interesting. I want to look into that. I like the type of global problems, global issues that you can solve, that you can help solving, okay, with this kind of approach. For somebody that doesn't have any idea of where to start from, so what's your best advice? But what are your top 2 pieces of advice?
That's go talk to Dr. A and tell him, you know what? Go talk to Dr. Feigart. That's another good person. Go talk to Dr. Glasgow. Go talk to, I don't know if how tied up he is these days, but Dr. Carmichael. You know, I think it's so important to have an accurate understanding of what doing research is really like. Because I thought I never knew. I thought I want to go into biomedical field, you know, because it's embarrassing to say, but I was ignorant. You know, all of the examples that were entrenched in my mind of cellular molecular stuff were within like cancer settings. So I thought naturally someone who wants to do research in the cellular level, then I need to go to cancer research. But I found out that that's not the case. In fact, you know, I've always questioned to myself, you know, what's beyond the individual cells, you know, because organisms are systems and you can't, it's not a one-to-one thing. So, you know, there's a whole field that's emerging called systems biology. So my advice to you is if you have no clue and you're wondering if research is what you might want to do, you need to get experience. Need to get experience. I talk to these professors. Hey, you know, what can I do? Is there any kind of project you guys have in mind? Can I try something? Apply to the Summer Cancer Research Institute. You know, develop. This is the time for you to make all the mistakes. Right? This is the time for you to cast your net wide. And it'll build on itself and pray. Seriously pray about it. And you'll find that, you know, I tell because I one time had to talk with prospective students, undergraduate students for the Clemson program, and I tell them it's equally important to know what you don't want to do as what you want to do. And one thing I remember Dr. Gray said to us, I don't know when it was, is that if you want to find your calling, you know, sometimes it's a good place to look at what you enjoy doing, you know, and if you like asking questions, if you like understanding how systems work, you know, and if you like understanding that basic biology to make tangible outcomes for growers and consumers, you know, plant science is there for you. You know, I work at the level of understanding how the physiology at the lipid level and at the whole plant level in peanuts can be optimized for their superior performance under high temperature stress. Well, everything I've been doing is above ground. There's a whole community of research there doing everything underneath ground, roots. You know, there's a whole discipline, a very interdisciplinary discipline called biogeochemistry. and they do some outstanding, fascinating work. How like the earth, the topsoil, is a living organism in of itself, you know? So like it's like get experience so that you have a clear idea of what research is like. And then from there you can start building experiences in areas that you're more leaning towards so that you have more exposure. Because that's the thing, like if you don't know, if you cannot articulate what in your own words the field of research you're interested in, that means you don't know enough about it.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, for those of you in undergrad, get experience, get experience, get experience, and don't make desperate decisions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because that can land you in a terrible, toxic lab.
Mm-hmm. Well, very, very valuable suggestions, Zolian, honestly. I see. I've been observing you growing, and you have definitely reached
Thank you.
PhD level maturity.
Yeah. Who
And
would have thought, right? Guys, I was the least likeliest person, man. Talk to the faculty.
yeah. Well, I met you just during your junior year, but I heard interesting stories about your first year and second year, which I'm not going to
Yeah.
disclose, even though because
Please
you
don't.
don't have the details. But if you want, you can share some. But
Yeah.
let me just cap it this way: your first and second year was not ideal, right?
No.
Right.
No.
Your GPA was not what it should have been. Your
No.
GPA was not the
No.
GPA that usually uh, admission people at Kansas State University or at UC Davis would consider, right?
Yeah.
But you made it
Not at all.
not at all. But there we go. You have a narrative. So you didn't
Yes.
start very strong, but you finished your undergrad very strong. You had
Mm.
to push through, right? You correct me if I'm wrong. You had to push through to prove yourself, to build up your own narrative, and you were able to achieve, right? And that's
Yes.
in itself a very, very strong testimony. Is there anything else you want to share about that, or any other?
Yeah, yeah, I just I think, and this goes into, if you were like me, or if you are like who I was, where I think human development is a combination of personal responsibility and the environment. And I think that is just a mysterious interaction that we will never fully understand. I think it goes all the way as far back, in my mind at least, to divine sovereignty and free will. Uh, I, but really, the point I'm trying to get is that if you feel like you're in your junior year and you've made so many mistakes, there's still hope for you. You know, surround yourself with people that will be supportive and be teachable. And for me, I was blessed beyond my imagination, now looking back, to have gotten the lucky break to join this master's program, and my advisor in particular, because she was very invested in me, as many young assistant professors are, but she herself really had an attitude of helping her students achieve their dreams. And because of that, I got that opportunity to work at Kansas State for 2 weeks. And that turned out to be the place I'm going now. Master's experience, despite my subpar undergrad GPA, able to build not just an academic profile, but a strong research profile, where a university like UC Davis would accept me and want me to come. So, so I think sometimes when I think about BJU students, I think of someone like me who went and got a master's first and really benefited from that in so many ways, just making my academic profile much better, but also helping me grow, and then also people like Christina Ross, who got that internship at Wisconsin, and she's going straight into her PhD. So everyone is at a different point in life, but God's timing is the best timing. And I know that can be very cliche, but um, there's hope for everyone. Yes, we make mistakes, and because of that, I paid a year or two, but things have worked out for the better at the end. I'm really happy for where I am, and yeah, and the hard times will come. You'll feel like you want to give up. I felt like I want to give up. One time there was, maybe it's a little bit personal, but one time because of I had overcome the heat tent situation in summer, as I was having concerns about the lipid analysis, and I couldn't leave my apartment for 3 days. I was that worried, and in times like that, I think it really helped me to have a good advisor who reached out, and also good colleagues and a good church family, and that makes you stronger. Going through those experiences make you stronger, and so yeah. I mean, if you ever have questions, please reach out to me, and just realize that in plant science in particular, it's a huge field. You can look at things at the cellular level like I am doing. You can look at soils, you can look at crop production systems. You can, for example, if I can share with you a innovation lab, the US aid, which is a US agency, is doing. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
It's coming. There we go. There we go. We are
Yeah,
here.
so USAID is a US agency that helps developing countries in order to basically, there are many areas they help. One big area is global hunger or food insecurity. And right now we have around 7 billion people in the world. And many economists and scientists have projected that by the year 2050, you will have nearly 10 billion people. Therefore, you have to produce or increase agricultural production by more than 50% without more land. So, this is the big picture kind of stuff that I'm trying to tell you guys. There's a whole agency. This is an innovation lab at Cornell, and they're really working with agriculture institutions in many different developing countries to develop varieties to help with food insecurity. And food insecurity is not just abundance; it's also providing enough nutrients, also access. So the reason I'm bringing this up is so that as you pursue your graduate studies, bear in mind that your opportunities nowadays is not just as an academic researcher. You can work in industry, you can work in nonprofit organizations. You don't have to do just the research alone. You can do these policy level, administrative level work. One of the geneticists that I'll be working with is where is he? He's Jeff Morris. He does the trait discovery stuff. So I just want you to open your mind and see that there are so many opportunities in a wide spectrum in plant science alone. And that is true of any big discipline that you end up pursuing. So yeah, I think that's just the last thing I really wanted to share. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions from you guys, or any concerns you have.
Since you mentioned it, do you mind just to share your email?
Yeah. So
You can just spell it.
Yeah, so sorry. Let's start over. ZSZOONG LWE@gmail.com.
Right. Can you
So
repeat it?
that's ZSZOONG LWE@gmail.com. And I'm giving you my personal email because I'm graduating from Clemson soon. That is the best place you can reach me.
Right. I think this was very precious, very, very valuable, as I said already. And I'm very, very sure some are going to find your story and the path that you have been walking in for a few years now. Very, very motivational. So I just thank you. I just thank you for the willingness to spend this hour together. And I pray that you will be well accomplished as you start this new program.
Thank you.
I really hope that you can find a good set of peers, mentors, and I'm using the plural intentionally, that you will find a good church there, a good community, and we're gonna surely stay in touch. So thank you again, Zolian. You opened up some perspective on sustainable agriculture and how new technologies, advanced chemistry can be utilized to pursue global goals. Thank you very much.
Yeah, privilege, and I really enjoyed the work you all have been doing. Maybe someday I can hire some future graduate students.
That's our hope. I'm pretty sure you are on the right path.
All righty, thank you, Dr. A.
Thank you very much, Zolian. Well, it was very nice to hear from Zolian. Different career path compared to the other ones we have seen, we have heard from in the recent past, but surely very valuable. I really hope some of you will find Zolian inspirational, and I hope that many of you will find at least enjoyable the conversation we had with him. I will say bye-bye, see you soon from this beautiful day in Greenville, South Carolina. Always remember to enjoy a good cup of coffee. Bye.